Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's take. Today, we're talking about, and I love the fact that they're able to put a press release saying remarkable in the headlines, especially when talking about a junior mining discovery. Pretty incredible coming out of the Golddigger property for Goliath Resources. The stock has surged in the last 2 days, up 49 cents. That's $1.49 today, off of incredible results. And this has been a strong conviction company that I've been following for 6 or 7 years, and we've loved it growing. But who am I? I've been lucky with some stuff. We're lucky that we get to speak to someone who's not lucky, but who understands these systems and who's an expert and who's had lots of success. So we're really pleased to be joined by, again, Dr. Quinton Hennigh from Crescat Capital, amongst other things. Now, most of you already know who Dr. Hennigh is, but for those of you who don't, he's worked with both like Homestake Mining Company, Newcrest, Newmont. He's been a senior research geologist, I think it was at 2007 with them. You name it, he's worked at Red Lake, Gold Canyon Resources, chairman and president of Nova Resources. The list goes on and on and on. He's a special advisor to Goliath, and we are lucky to have him here to walk us through what the last two results, especially this last one. So the last two news releases for 2025, what that means, what it looks like. But because this is a growing story that's been going for years and accumulating, how it started, where we're at in totality, and where we think things are going for the year ahead. So Dr. Hennigh, real pleased to have you here. We're very excited and like to get maybe some, with the experience, a bit more sobering, because I'm like jumping up and down crazy, because to me, this seems pretty outstanding.
Well, look, it is an exciting story. We've been involved in this since, I think, late 2020. I think we first came in, or I first heard the story, I should say, after they did quite a bit of field work in this really unique location. This is way up on the side of a pretty tall glacial mountain. It used to be capped by snow. There was cover over this ice, and it was only recently the snow melted, and guess what? It exposed these beautiful veins like the Surebet. They did a lot of channel sampling, very early time period, and they got some really nice thicknesses, but also really nice grades. Like gold was typically 10, 15 gram gold equivalent over, a few meters, like 6 to 10 meters, something like that. Really caught my attention, particularly with the continuity and the geometry of the thing, with all of the veins being effectively above the valley bottom. It just looked like a compelling case, and it's played out well. It's now they're starting to find the high grade.
So maybe we'll kind of work our way in reverse to some extent, because I think people want to know about these results because they're so high. I mean, the two coming out here, great widths, great numbers. What was your take when you saw that as a standalone? And then maybe we'll kind of consider it with the context of what of the totality of what's growing there.
Okay. Everybody knows that I like to use food as an analogy for ore bodies. Okay. So basically, if I had to pull an analog out of thin air to describe the way one should think of the Surebet system on the Golddigger project, and actually this can be applied to a number of the gold systems through that southern part of the Golden Triangle in BC. Think of it like baklava. Okay, everybody loves baklava, right? You got layers of phyllo paper, but in every once in a while you get a layer where there's the goodies, a bit of honey and walnuts and stuff. The gold in this case, that's where it occurs. It's in those pretty well defined, discrete horizons that occur within an otherwise very thick section of baklava. So basically you have relatively flat lodes. These are quartz lodes that have gold sulfides. They even have other metals. I mean, there's a bit of silver, there's a bit of zinc and lead and stuff. But these flat veins are where the goodies are at. Now, then it becomes a question, how did the gold get there? Well, I think we're starting to see that picture develop. I think we're starting to see the company hone in on the high grade, but also likely we'll call it driver for the system. There's likely an intrusion at depth that was gold rich, appears to be likely reduced intrusive system. Those people that want to go into depth these are the kind of intrusions that carry a lot of gold. They can deliver a lot of goodies. Anyway, the fluids came off from that, and then they went and found these flat layers. So it shot into those flat layers, and guess what? They're now finding that the highest grade ones are basically the lower ones, like the Bonanza zone that they've announced these most recent results from.
Now, I always like to check to see what the negative comments out there as well are, just to see if anyone's giving any pushback. And mostly there hasn't, except there was one just in regards to, is this a schmear? There was questions about, and I think Roger was on a podcast, Carolyn report, I think yesterday, saying that, listen, like along the entire amount, there's visible gold. What's your thoughts when people kind of bring up that idea? Like, hey, listen, maybe it's this, maybe it's that.
Yeah, sure. Look, if the company was reporting like 300 meters or 500 meters of 2 or 3 grams or something like that, and that gold was largely concentrated in a few meters, I would say, yeah, that's smearing. And there are companies out there that do that. And look, I'm not saying that all the gold is evenly distributed over the intercepts.
Sure. Yes.
Okay. There's clusters of visible gold and therefore higher grade gold, obviously. But in general, in geologic terms, you can see this discrete quartz vein system, like when they're drilling. And look, they're drilling more or less straight down on the thing too, which is
layered. Yes.
Advantage. They're not drilling at it like this. They're actually drilling at it like this, right? So
okay, yeah.
They're actually more or less testing the true thickness and stuff. They can see, here's where the quartz starts. Here's where the quartz bottoms. Yeah, there might be some discrete intervals in there that are higher grade, but overall there's gold across the entire geologic feature, being the quartz vein system. So it doesn't really bother me. Like when I see, quite a bit of gold in, individual assays, but it's over a 10-meter intercept or 30 in this case, I think, or something. It's not extreme. Like this is just the nature of the beast.
Yes. Yeah. And I can understand someone being a bit concerned if they're like, well, if it's nuggety, are we concerned that maybe you hit a nuggety area and then a not area? And I think once again, Roger had said, no, it's pretty, from what we're seeing meter to meter, it's continuous and looks quite strong. So,
well, there's a little bit more to talk about, but I'll get into it. We'll have an opportunity here. Okay. Anyway, I don't want to just, distract from your train of thought. So let's go through it like you'd like to proceed here.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's fine. Because I just, that's the only thing that I could see from anyone. And I understand that people they want to get the nitty gritties down. And to me, I mean, and the comments, most of the people just answered them saying, listen, this, even if it is a little nuggety, Roger answered that and said that, what we've got here, never mind that I think it's 92% of all of the holes had visible gold. And depending on what results over the last years, they've had a very high percentage of visible gold in all the results that they've had so far to date as well.
That's correct. They see a lot of visible gold here, and that's not really a big surprise because if you look, way back to the first season, I think they drilled was 2021, and they did metallurgical work shortly after that because they did see a lot of visible gold in holes, and the test work clearly shows that much of the gold in this mineralization comes out through gravity recovery. Okay, the only way it does that is if you got a lot of visible gold, and it seems to be the theme that keeps presenting itself here. Like every time they drill a hole, basically they see intervals with visible gold. So not a big surprise.
Yeah, that was one of the great things too. If I remember that they were doing the metallurgical work alongside to show people, like, listen, I thought that was a nice approach because it was saying we're getting great grades, and we're also going to do this at the same time, so it isn't one of these situations where we might find something, we've got a great discovery, and we find it's not metallurgical. So they kind of, at the start, were saying, let's do both these things in conjunction to show you that this can become something.
Yeah, so I'm going to, because you brought the topic up, okay. And if you don't mind, that's usually the way I work. But look, I was actually, mostly responsible for pushing the metallurgical work. Okay, this is
perfect. Okay, great. Yeah.
Okay, so I saw their drill results. They did really good science. They did some petrography, which means they took the rock and then took a thin slice, put it on a glass plate, and they could look at it under the microscope. And it was clear that there was a lot of particulate gold. Okay, so I said, guys, you really should do gravity and flotation tests here. Some of the gold was associated with sulfides like sphalerite, which is zinc, and galena, which is lead. And I said, if you can show that gravity and flotation basically capture all your metal or most of your metal, then this project is going to be very easy to advance. And it will also demonstrate, by the way, to potential suitor companies, like big companies, that they're doing the good science. I really push metallurgy as an early stage test of any gold deposit. Okay, especially you got to know you can get the gold out. They did that. They took my advice. They did a round of metallurgy, I think, in late 21 and early 22, and then they did another one in late 22 and early 23. And both rounds of testing, just hands down, demonstrated absolutely fantastic recoveries, probably 50% or more in gravity gold. So in other words, talk about cheap processing. The gold literally just comes out in the gravity circuit. And then the other fraction of the gold is recovered in flotation concentrates. Well, what does that mean? Okay, if you recover a substantial amount of gold into, say, a zinc lead concentrate, okay, that means you could potentially, that there's a lot more work that has to be done here, but you could potentially just ship that material to a smelter and they do all the processing from there. Okay, that means that you could largely escape the need to do, say, cyanide treatment or whatever on site. And that can make permitting way easier. It could be a lot less headache, a lot less capital intensive, and things like that. So I think the results, the metallurgical results to date, speak volumes about the very high quality of this deposit. And now we've got drill holes, which are literally, testing and seeing these discrete zones. So it's not just the Surebet anymore. We got the Golden Gate and the Bonanza, and there's other lodes that are tucked and hiding in there and here and there. It's a really robust gold system. It's demonstrating the same qualities everywhere. Visible gold, a bit of sulfide, should be great metallurgical material, et cetera, et cetera. Like, it's just a wonderful story.
So with this latest news release, I saw, now I don't want to get too promotional here, but I saw some article because I was just trying to take in any analyst report or any article I could find. I saw someone, because I always like to look for comparables. Someone said it somewhat kind of reminds them of the Pogo mine a little bit. Yeah. It's a bit of an analogy to that one. And I love having that someone could go, oh, okay, if this looks like something else that's currently in production, let me go look at that and make a little bit of make the analogy true. Let's compare it.
Okay, so Pogo is currently operated by Northern Star, and people can look up information about it. I think there's more available today than in the past when it was first discovered. Okay, so the history of Pogo is that Sumitomo Metal Mining and Teck were in a joint venture to explore. They were actually exploring for base metal, but they found this amazing gold deposit in Alaska. It's not all that far from Fairbanks. It's a bit east of Fairbanks. Anyway, they discovered this. They did Blake sampling, which identified gold anomalism in the streams, and then they started doing geologic, mapping and stuff that really showed these quartz veins, these quartz lodes, much like we see at Surebet. Okay, much like we see at Surebet in outcrop. And look, I'm very fortunate because I know he's passed away here recently, but. Mr. Takaoka, who is working for Sumitomo Metal Mining, he's credited with the discovery, and then Myra Smith, who was a young geologist at the time. I mean, this is going back early 1990s, I think. She worked under Mr. Takaoka, and she was an American geologist who worked alongside him to make that discovery. And I know both folks quite well, so. I know the details, stories about the discovery and so forth. But if you look, because Sumitomo and Teck operated, there wasn't a lot of publicly available information about Pogo. So for probably the first, 25 years, very few people knew much about the geology. But I did, so I knew it in detail, and it's basically the same baklava picture. Okay, it's these flat lodes or relatively flat lodes, and they're stacked. Okay, you got to think of it like Christmas tree branches. Okay, and when you get into the higher grade parts of the branches, like they're not like uniformly mineralized over the whole footprint. Okay, there's in any vein system, this is really important, and people need to listen to this. Okay, in any vein system, you're going to have what are called chutes. They're basically zones within that vein that are high grade, and then there's going to be other areas which are just the opposite. For whatever reason, certain parts of the fracture did not open when the gold bearing fluids came along, and therefore they're low grade. Okay, and oftentimes that difference. Think of it like this. Okay, there's a bit of a gap right here. Okay, but the structure goes clear across. Well, where my hands are touching, that would be low grade because the fluids couldn't get here or here.
Yeah.
But they were able to go up here. Okay.
Yes.
So what you end up with are these areas what are typically fatter, they're bigger, and they're really high grade. Okay. And then you'll end up with areas around on either side where it's lower grade. Okay. It's pretty simple to understand. So you might find the vein goes over a big area, but it's those chutes where like 90% of the gold occurs. Okay. And that was the case at Pogo. There were some just beautiful high grade chutes. I think their average head grade over the first 20 odd years was probably 15 grams or so.
Oh, holy cow.
Yeah, it was a fantastic, and it's been a fantastic one. I think they produced 300,000 ounces plus or minus, gold per year.
Yes.
Out of just an extraordinary high grade. Well, this system it's almost a replicate. Like you can look at the quartz vein textures and sulfides and stuff at Surebet, and then you look at photos of Pogo, and they're the same type of deposit. Absolutely.
That's wild. And that's why it's so critical. Like, I mean, we always say to people, and I love using like Mining Hub. You could look at Mining Hub, you could see the width, you could see the results. You go, oh, that looks like a great hole. And for someone like a layperson that just that amount to go, ooh, that looks good. But if you don't know the context as to how is this disseminated, which way is it flowing, where is it coming from, it's good information. It's better than not having it, but it also is, well, what is this really telling me? And that's where I thought we'd get into a bit of the nitty gritty with you of what is this telling you at this point with the accumulation of knowledge you have so far. I mean, having that comparison to Pogo, I mean, that's right off the bat. I think people relate to that very quickly because once again, they can go pull up Pogo at Northern Star. Boom, there's all the details right there. That can give them a bit of a framework to get their head wrapped around. But what? Let's just hear from you, like from your position, what you're seeing develop before our eyes.
Okay, well, let's start at the big scope of the general geology of the system. I mean, first of all, you have almost a 100% certainty that this intrusion is closely associated. This intrusive that they see manifest in dikes and stuff that come up through the stratigraphy, they come up through the baklava. Think of it like that. Okay, these dikes come up. Those are almost certainly linked to the fluids that generated the gold deposit. Okay, and we see that at Pogo too. There's very clear evidence there is largely magma driving, gold-rich magma that probably drove the system and provided the gold. So there's that commonality. Okay. Other thing we see is that the host rocks are very similar. They're kind of this mishmash of sedimentary and or volcanic rocks, but they're nicely layered. Think baklava again. Think phyllo paper or whatever. And then the rocks have been deformed. So basically they've been squeezed more or less in a sub-horizontal way. So basically, from side to side, that kind of squeezing, which tends to open up horizontal or relatively flat veins. Okay, so we see those similarities, like just big picture, Pogo, Surebet look a lot alike. Okay, now, let's talk about the gold itself. At Pogo, there is a bit of sphalerite and galena, so we see that kind of common association. We see it at Surebet. Okay, so there's basically the fluids that generated Surebet must have compositionally, they must have been very similar, like had the same chemistry and kind of like right ingredients that Pogo had. Okay, very similar textures and minerals and stuff formed. All right. In terms of grade and its distribution, look at, I do have a model of Pogo on the computer. I helped Sumitomo years ago.
Oh, very cool.
I've actually looked at it in detail. I can tell you individual assays, for Pogo.
Yeah.
And I've talked about this before on a Crescat video, probably a year or two ago. Very comparable to what we see in, in both the tenor and the lengths of intercepts that are seen at Pogo and Surebet. Okay, so I think that's another commonality I would throw out there. This bonanza, and another common feature. Look at Pogo, you had the lease zone, which was the main, high grade ledge. It was, think of it like the mothership, or like the main structure that took up fluids, we'll call it. And here we're starting to see the bonanza zone, what they call the bonanza zone, be that main. So the lease and the bonanza are also quite similar analogy, both in thickness as well as grades and stuff. Now, at Pogo, they would have these lenses. So back to my rudimentary model here. Okay, there would be points where it pinched down or got narrower, which is where my hands are, and then there'd be places where it was open and it was a bit fatter. Well, look at the data that they have. In fact, in the news release, do a pretty good job of listing the assays, like the drill holes that have gone through this bonanza zone, and you can see a pretty wide spectrum. Like, for instance, I got the table up here so I can kind of ramble them off. You got intercepts like 9 meters, pretty stout thickness of 34 grams. A skinny one, 5 meter, 5.2 meters of 35. There's 5.9 meters of 46. We have the one that just came out, 39 of 34. But typically 5.9 at 28. Typically, when you get into the fatter, people are going to hold me to it like it's a universal law or something. No, it's not. But typically when you see a fatter intercept, you're in one of the lenses. Like you're in one.
Okay.
Okay, think of it that way. And then when you get off to the sides, you see the thicknesses decrease a bit. And then you see grades more like 3, 4, 5 meters of 1 or 2 or 8 grams, or somewhere in that range, somewhere in that window. In other words, a lower grade. It's the nature of the beast. Okay, and that's very similar at Pogo to what they're seeing at the bonanza ledge. Now, what does it mean for drilling? Look, this bonanza ledge is very expansive. Okay, it's basically like. It's not quite a square shape, but you're pretty close to it, and it's roughly 900 meters by 600 meters.
Yeah.
Pretty big footprint. And it's again, fairly flat. Okay. So, imagine you're on a steep mountain and you're trying to poke holes down into this flat layer, this flat, baklava. Every hole that you get in there, sure, it's going to see some evidence of the structure. And, I can clearly see that everything's holding together. Like there's definitely a structural zone there, but not every single hole is going to hit high grade, okay, because it does pinch and swell like I described.
Yes.
But they're going to have to drill more holes, okay, to get a sense of where and how those chutes are oriented. I think they're starting to see it. Okay, usually when you get enough holes, like in this case, I think they have about 15 or 20 holes through it, you can start to plot up the grade thickness and then start to see how the chutes are kind of shaped. They're oriented east-west or north-south, okay, or whatever. They'll figure it out. Okay, I have no doubt. But I do think they're going to have to do another round of drilling, a pretty serious round of drilling. They're going to have to, first of all, figure out where to put drill pads in the surface because it's steep as a buggery there. I mean, it's just,
yes.
It's steep, okay? So they're going to have to work with topography to try to get pads where they can poke holes on a fairly, we'll call it even spread, like regular distribution across the entire footprint of the bonanza ledge. And don't forget, as they drill down, they go through the Surebet and the Golden Gate ledge and other ledges as well.
Yes. Yes.
But they need to get a pretty even spread. So maybe like 50 to 100 meters, like on centers. In other words, you want your scattering of holes kind of around 50 to 100 meters. That means they're going to have to drill a fair number of additional holes. They probably need another season to drill.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. And but it's there. It's there. I mean, and the other thing is it's open too, which is really remarkable.
Yes.
The thing, like the the box that I described, 900 meters by 600 meters or thereabouts, that's just the current footprint. Okay, it is open, as I understand, it's open in more or less all directions. Topography, it's low down in the hill, but it's still above the valley. Okay, and I think there's some places where it skies out. Basically, topography has cut it away, but most places it doesn't. It continues underneath the hills. This thing could go on for a lot bigger footprint here. Okay, and if it does, it might be the company really has to kind of ramp up. How they approach this. They might have to do some aggressive step outs just to see how far it goes.
Yeah, how far it goes. Yeah, actually, we've got a good question here. Is there any chance they could drill horizontal or sub-horizontal holes from outcrop?
Okay, well, sub-horizontal is not going to do you much good because you're almost the sheet is almost horizontal. So if you drill horizontal, if you go below it, oh, bugger me. If you go above it, yeah, great. You missed it too. But what I'm saying is it's hard to drill something that's oriented this way, like this.
Yes.
You got to
okay.
like this. Okay.
Okay.
Now, to answer the question better, though, I mean, this is my view, is that ultimately the company's got to get an adit in here. Okay. What that means, it's not a tunnel like clear through the mountain, but a opening that goes in and maybe some drives off the adit, either below or above. Okay. But it doesn't bother me which way. Okay. But then you can sit there and poke holes ad nauseum to fully evaluate the loads. Yep.
That's very cool. Now, and you touched on a bunch of interesting things. I'm kind of going to remind people that this is the first of the drill program. I think they've got 85 more holes of 109, which is great. But that's from the plan from last year. You're speaking about what they've discovered right now and what will have to come in the future to develop what we've kind of discovered, which is exciting. What is the other news or waiting on? Hopefully, fully going to kind of relay to us.
Oh, look, they have a lot of holes they drilled this year, but they also of those 80 odd holes that you mentioned, they have, I think it's like 83 that they have still. Some of those holes are actually holes that were drilled in previous years, in which they've gone back and logged new zones that they didn't recognize. Now it sounds like, well, why did they miss it? Like, oh, geez, these guys are sloppy. No, they're not sloppy. They're good. I've met the team. I know them all. They're really good. But boy, when you're cranking out like 35,000 meters in the season, and you're trying to log that in like land speed time, like before the snow starts, you miss stuff. Okay, especially towards the end of the season. It's like cordwood. The core boxes literally get stacked up, and you're like, oh my god, we got to log all this by the middle of October. Snow's coming. And you're just absolutely flat out. And what the company recognized is that there's basically some holes that were drilled in previous years that need to go back and be reassayed. So some of the 83 holes or so are actually, I think they're reassay holes. So you both a mix of new holes and a bit of historicals. Okay.
That's fantastic. I think when we're touching on that too, I remember speaking with Roger years ago and noticing that the quality of which, like camp, the way they work, the way everything's set up is with a major in mind. Like they want to set up everything right from day one that we'll do things slowly, methodically, properly at a level a Newmont would expect. Like that they could just walk in, turnkey, and feel comfortable. And that's also something early stage doesn't really mean that much. I mean, it's nice that they're doing that, but when you're at this stage, things are really developing and things are great. Not only is it awesome that you go, well, metallurgy is taken care of. That's awesome. That's phew. But also too, we've done things to a quality that is what a major would expect.
Yeah, I would agree. I've been to camp. I was there in July of 2023, so not in 2024 was the previous year. It was right in the middle of their very aggressive drill season that year, and I got to see the setup. It's right there, Kitsault, and it's the end of a fjord. So basically, you have a town that was built. Believe it or not, it was built because there's a molybdenum deposit not far away. Okay, it's just up the hill. And this was going back, I think, to the late 70s, early 80s. It was built and the mine was put into operation. Then the moly price just cratered and the whole thing went pear-shaped. Okay, but that town, all the buildings, the houses, and the what do you call them, like condominiums or whatever, are still in pretty good nick. They've been upkept for many years. It's very strange to be there because it's almost like a ghost town, but it's well preserved ghost town. And they have a really good facility there. They got a laydown yard, extraordinary laydown yard, where they can put all the core and they can log and stuff. So that's great. They have a helicopter landing zone that was basically, I think, the school football field or not football, baseball field. And they got other things. They got plenty of rooms, for geologists and stuff. So it's a delightful area to work. Yes, a big company would probably find that attractive because it's the easier it is to work and get your job done, the more efficient you can move a project forward, more efficiently you can move it forward. So I'm sure that's got a big advantage, but it is also worked in the favor of Goliath as well. I mean, they've been able to advance this thing at a pretty good nick. If they've been operating, say, in a remote camp, like they had to build a camp way out in the bush, that's when it gets expensive, or even more expensive. I mean, it's British Columbia, okay, so it's not not free to work there, okay, but if it was out in the bush, like, oh my gosh, fly in camp where you have to fly in every single, all the food and the core boxes and it gets really expensive quick. Okay, so it has helped keep costs reasonably under control here. To get to the drill site, you basically get in the helicopter on the baseball field, you take off, you go across the fjord, and then you go up the valley there's a valley that goes up towards the Dolly Varden mine, which is kind of not far away from Goliath. Anyway, you follow that valley up. That road that goes to Dolly Varden, it was washed out, and I don't know exactly what happened. There was a bad weather season like a few years ago, and the thing just got demolished, and for whatever reason they can't, I don't think they've upgraded it since. They haven't gone back in and kind of refurbished that road. So unfortunately, your helicopters have to fly clear up the valley and then you go over the ridge to Surebet. Okay, so it is a bit of a flight. Okay, that is one factor that's important to recognize. That the helicopter time is probably 15 minutes to go from the baseball up to Surebet, but otherwise, great project.
And let's touch on because it's with the great news as well. It's easy to overlook, and it's early stage. The Treasure Island, because they had hit some great grab samples and whatnot, channel cuts from there. Like 2023, I'm hesitant to say this, but wasn't there a channel cut with like copper grades of 14% or 13% that came out of there? Yeah, okay. Which I'm always a little nervous to major like numbers like that, where you're like, whoa, should I say this? But so let's tell me what we're because this is another kind of a la carte bonus.
It is. Look, it's compared to. I mean, this obviously I don't want to. I've worked with enough junior companies and I've run enough junior companies that being focused, I found, is almost paramount for investors. And I do not want to give people the idea that Goliath is in any way distracted from the work they're doing at Surebet, especially with this financial zone. Okay, so I want to emphasize company is focused like a laser here. But back in 2023, in fact, it was about the time I was visiting them, they did send prospect crews out to the north end of the Golddigger property. And I got to see some of the areas. I didn't get to see Treasure Island because they hadn't found it yet. But they were literally hopping around looking at areas where the ice had recently melted away and exposed new outcropping mineralization. And there is a lot of stuff up there. I mean, there's just a heap of stuff. We're right in the middle of the Golden Triangle, firstly. So it's to be expected that there would be more mineralization, more systems and stuff underneath that ice. And now that they can see these little patches and areas, sure enough, they're finding more systems. Now, what is Treasure Island? Well, I didn't put boots on the ground there, so I can't tell you 100%. But from what I've seen from the core photos, like the holes they drilled this year, and from the rock samples, they did some channels and stuff. Looks to me like a VMS type system. Okay, it's different. It's a different type.
Yes.
And VMS deposits are pretty well known across the Golden Triangle. I mean, Eskay Creek was a VMS deposit. Okay, there's other ones, but Eskay is obviously the big boy in the world, in this world. So my view is it's likely a VMS system. Now, if you go where Treasure Island is, you have to go over a mountain, and then you go into the next fjord where Stewart is located. Okay, and Stewart is an old town, a mining town, we'll call it. And this is right on the border with Alaska, by the way. Just up from Stewart is the Premier mine. Okay, so Premier was a gold mine. That's actually not too different than Surebet. Okay, and it was a fantastic mine. It was a killer of a mine. It was a wonderful mine. But near Premier, there's a little project called I think it's Red Canyon or Red something. Anyway, it belongs. I think it's a joint venture between Decade and Mountain Boy, or I can't remember their names now, but the two little companies have this thing. It was drilled a few years ago, like 10 years ago or something, and the numbers are fantastic from that. And I looked at that pretty hard a while back. It looks to me like a VMS, and to me, that is an analog for what they're seeing at Treasure Mountain. I think you basically have a belt of VMS going through there that's maybe not fully recognized yet by the geologic community, but I think as the ice melts away, I think you're going to see more of these VMS like occurrences. Now, is it a good target? Yeah, it's a good target. It's a very good target. It could be very high grade. Obviously, the copper grades that you quoted are just off the chart. And I do think there are analogs in the greater region that could tell us maybe what they're onto. Okay, there's a little mine. I shouldn't say it's a little mine. It's actually a big darn mine called Antiochs, which is down more towards Kitsault. So it's down in the next fjord to the south. And there was a mine down where the fjord goes down to the west and whatever. It starts to get into the ocean. This mine was operated for many years, especially during the war. It produced a lot of copper and gold and stuff. Okay, and it was a fantastic high-grade VMS mine. As I understand, most people think it's a VMS deposit. That might be an analog for what they have at Treasure Mountain. Okay, so that's my gut.
That's pretty cool. Well, let's kind of, because I can keep talking for ages on this, but we're coming up to a very busy couple months here. We've got AIM, we've got VRIC, starting on Sunday. Then we've got PDAC. There's going to be, I imagine, a lot of people. Certainly, they've been paying attention, but a lot of people really paying attention now because. And I'm not asking for any specifics, but I mean, there's lots of majors that I would argue need to be looking for projects. Some of the outright said they're looking for projects in BC in the Golden Triangle for a safe jurisdiction. What's your take in the context of owning as Crescat, as activist investors, as a strategy? What's your kind of take on your position holding it, and where you think things are developing in that way, as much as you can say?
Yeah, look, I think at present we have, I don't know exactly percent-wise, but it's 16 or 17% roughly, or maybe, I don't know exactly, so don't hold me to it if somebody comes up with a different number. Somebody, it was weird. Somebody said, oh, it looks like Crescat sold some recently. No, we haven't. We have not sold Goliath. In fact, we participated in all recent placements. Usually, alongside even like Rob McEwen and others, that have come into this story. Look, money's been a little bit tighter for us as Crescat here recently. Just the markets are bloody tough, but we've put money into Goliath on a consistent basis. Every time they've had a placement or warrants needed to get exercised or whatever, we've put money into this. And why is because, this one is one of our highest conviction stories. I mean, this is basically, it is such a compelling story to think that they're onto this high-grade Pogo analog discovery that could be, multi-million ounce thing with luck that majors need in this day and age. Okay, major mining companies, look, we in the gold world, we know what we know already. Okay, we know what's out there. The inventory of gold deposits that is on hand is pretty well known amongst the entire gold industry. But new discoveries like this, especially high quality ones like this, or Snowline, or what I think Sitka's on, or there's others, even SK, and so these are the ones that dreams are made out of. Okay, in other words, they could be the focus of significant M&A once that cycle kicks in here. Okay, like you could see that just people pounce, like flock.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, we got to have, this is a must-have, and everybody's fighting like tooth and nail for it or something. Yeah, that's our view.
Here's my pitch to Barrick. You're having problems in Mali. Take a look at Goliath.
Yeah. And then Barrick might say, "Oh well, but we need a little bit of copper in there with," and it's like,
yeah,
well,
yeah.
Maybe Agnico. Agnico doesn't seem to have a problem. Yeah.
Excellent. Anyway. Okay, I'll kind of wrap this up, because what do you see? I imagine we're going to have a bunch of holes. There's going to be lots of news flow coming into PDAC. There'll be lots of conversations as well, and then it'll be a situation of identifying. I'm sure with your advice, where are you expanding? Where are you targeting beyond with all the data that's coming in over the next weeks?
Okay, the volume just left. Can you say the last part of that question again real quick?
Yes, sorry. Can you hear me? Yeah, sorry. My apologies. So coming, I assume what's going to happen now is we've got a bunch of more holes that will come through. So more data. There'll be all these conversations. There's going to be a flurry. Once that's all in, I assume you'll kind of get together with them as well, and you'll look to see where are you going to start looking at new holes, and where are you going to start to grow out, and where things are going to build. So there's going to be a lot going on the next little while.
Okay, that's part of the blessing of being a little older and not having to deal with the details. But look, I give them my 2 bits, I guess, is the way I put it. Like, like I said earlier, to drill Bonanza here, they're going to have to do some step outs and make sure they know how big this thing might be. It could be a lot bigger. But I would say 50 to 100 meter spacing is kind of the ideal target. Yep. If they can get to 100 meter spacing and they can start to delineate the chutes, better, I think that will go a long way to helping them get to a resource stage and stuff like that. So my advice to the company, they can take it or leave it. My advice would be 50 to 100 meter centers. It's not going to be a perfect grid. Nobody can drill a perfect grid across this thing. Okay.
Yes.
You're limited by topography, but a nominal spacing, call it, on average about 50 to 100 meter spacing, that should do it. Please step out a bit. I want to see them delineate the overall size of this thing. Yeah. Sometimes, guys, I'm telling you, for investors, sometimes everybody wants instant gratification.
I know, yes.
But sometimes you have to ease into the high grade. Okay, and while these results are fantastic, we're dealing with literally something that's half the size of Manhattan here. Okay, it's like huge. I mean, it's not that big, but it's pretty bloody big. It's like, and you think, okay, we got 15 holes into this thing. Okay, well, have we hit the best stuff yet? Look, the odds are against us that we've hit the best stuff yet. Okay, so what I'm saying is, as you're drilling the 50, 100 meter spacing things, and you start to see a pattern evolve where, oh my gosh, look at here. Here's your high grade, and it's heading that direction. We might see this story evolve very quickly next year.
Yes. Okay.
As they grow. Okay, they'll work their way towards the mothership. Yeah.
That's exciting. And it's funny because I saw a great thing on one of the forums, someone saying, listen, it could be, like 5 million ounces to 10 million ounces to 15 million ounces, depending what model you're looking at. More data has to come in, but there's no doubt there's gold. Like there's no doubt that this thing is happening. And we have one comment here, and maybe you can reiterate on this, is that very difficult topography. And it's challenging. It's steep, but like maybe you can kind of mention again that like people have dealt with difficult topography before.
Absolutely. It's not impossible to drill this. They've been doing it for 3 or 4 years now, consistently. And they do have pads pretty much built or delineated, permitted, whatever, across the whole footprint of this thing. But they're steep, okay? And the trick is this. Now they know the Bonanza zone's down here, okay? That means every single drill hole is going to have to be 400-500 meters long.
Yeah.
Because it's not the Surebet, which is way up here where you can just go bang, 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 like this. You're targeting something down here. So each hole is going to be a 400 or 500 meter punt. Okay. It's, in other words, you can't get as many holes done in a season because of that. That's probably your biggest limitation. I think they can reach from the drill pads they have right now. I think they can reach and do that 50 to 100 meter spacing that I was talking about.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, listen, this is exciting. This is very exciting. I mean, it's so great whenever you've got all the pluses. And I like to remind people too that because we've got a lot of newer people that are subscribers to the channel and whatnot, and they go, well, I don't understand. We always hear that all the good stuff's being picked apart and found already. And I have to remind them that this is glacial recession. So this is hidden under a glacier for a long period of time. So it is rare that you get this situation where you get to find a full green story. But this is a greenfield project that is rare and amazing.
And I think there will be more too. I mean, look at Treasure Island. Maybe that's going to turn into a big discovery on its own right. I don't know. But this one is a whopper. This is a great story, and I love it. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thanks so much, Dr. Hennigh. I really appreciate you spending all the time with us. And we'll chat with you soon. I'm sure you're going to be busy over the next couple of months here for sure.
Thank you.
All right. Take care. Take care, everyone. We'll talk to you real soon.